Hello, my name is Enzo from Holistic Life Network. This evening this afternoon, we're in Point Claire with Sharon Cohen. Welcome, Sharon. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Enzo.
So, I understand you've been a naturopath for over 20 years.
Yes.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Thank you. And I'm still having fun doing what I'm doing after this.
I'm sure you are.
That's the biggest accomplishment, I would say.
So, in the 20 years, how has your approach changed? Have the conditions that people come to see you with changed as well?
Well, I think just to start off, people are much more open now. When I started 22 years ago, a lot of people would say to me, naturopath, what's a naturopath? And I always had to explain what I studied, what I was up to, how I supported people. And now a lot of people are seeking out naturopaths. So that's really nice. I'd say over the years, I really am working much more holistically. So for me, true healing is on the level of the mind, body, and spirit. So that's the approach that I take. My background is in psychology, and I help people bridge the gap between their emotional and spiritual stressors and what's happening in their physical bodies.
I see, very good. Have the conditions, do you find that maybe, I don't know, environmental issues have changed the way people's health and why they would come and see you?
For sure. I'm seeing a lot of young children now as well. And I'm finding I do food intolerance blood testing and hair mineral analysis, and we can even check for heavy metals. And I had a 1-year-old today who we found lead in his hair, and so I think that it's due to a lot of different things. But one thing is the body should be, even though we take in these heavy metals that could be from food, water, old paint dust, and many other things.
Breast milk, I would imagine.
Breast milk, exactly, at that young age. And so it's really, the question is, why is the body having such a hard time to detox it? And I think now, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years later, we have more herbicides, pesticides. Now Monsanto has introduced glyphosate into our food. And the body has to deal with all of this air pollution and water pollution and what's, in the feed of the animals that we're eating.
Can you describe what that is, that
much.
Monsanto, what exactly that product is, or that chemical, and what does it do?
Well, the one thing that it does is it creates, first of all, an intolerance. So when there's an intolerance in the body creates a lot of histamine to try to move it out. And so therefore there's more inflammatory response, right? And then it starts in the gut. And then because of that, we may get a leaky gut or intestinal impermeability. It could cause irritation in our gut lining. And when we have something like leaky gut, it kind of stretches our fibers. And then little food particles that are supposed to stay in the intestines get into the blood and they can travel. It creates systemic inflammation. And that could be a really big problem in your brain, in your joints, and many other things as well.
It's fascinating. Actually, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is sort of tied into this, and I wanted to talk about the relationship or the link between nutrition and ailments.
Yes.
I was on very recently, someone that I knew, her 2-year-old child has asthma, and severe asthma, and is taking a pump every day and is being referred to a specialist. And I thought, I'm sure I've heard many times there's a link between asthma and food, and a lot of it is linked to the gut and sensitivities. So I looked up asthma, nutrition. Nothing came up. Everything that came up were, WebMD, Mayo Clinic, all medical blogs that discount the relationship between food and ailments and conditions. So can you tell us a bit more about how big of a role does nutrition play? Does it really have on all these ailments? How much of ourselves can we cure solely through nutrition?
Solely?
I know nothing, holistic is about combining approaches, but just looking at food, let's say.
Because we have to, it's a big picture, right? So some people have been on a healthy regime, but it stresses them out totally.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you tell them, so I always work with what my clients are willing to do and what is the balance here. Because you can eat the healthiest foods on the planet, but if it's causing you two things. If you have intolerance to foods, and that doesn't mean because it's a carrot or because it's a kidney bean or peas, which are high intolerance foods to some, not the carrots, but definitely kidney beans, peas, things that you think, oh, well, those should be healthy foods, not necessarily.
Right.
Right? So that's a problem in itself. The other thing is if you're stressed to want to eat healthy, and it's really difficult, some people really want to eat organic, but they can't afford it. But they think, I have to because, well, if you're creating stress hormones, but you're eating super healthy, then that's a problem too. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really the balance of all of our relationship to food is very important. How we eat is very important. How we take the food and prepare it, the energy we put into preparing the food, into shopping for the food. If we're resentful that we have to go shopping, for the family every week, then what's that energy? And then I have to cook. What's the energy you're putting into the food that you're taking in that's creating your cells? So it's all in relationship to each other. And yes, healthy food, the foods that you're not intolerant to, are creating healthy cells as well. It's very important. Healthy, clean food without the herbicides, the pesticides, the growth hormones, the antibiotics in the meat, and all of that. So I think it's about really whole, fresh food is what our body, really takes in and makes the healthiest cells with. Is foods that nature gives us and the way that it gives it to us.
And how, and as you were saying before, the relationship that we have with that food plays a big role.
Huge.
Or our presence you were talking about. I think it was in August when you were at Leanne Bridges' event,
Yes.
and you did this event together. It was a one-day retreat or something, or an afternoon retreat. And one of the things that you said during the talk that really stood out to us, I think, is you were talking a lot about encouraging us to be more present and more mindful as we sat down to eat.
Yes.
And just become aware of how seldom we really do take the time to taste the food, to look at it, and to be with it as we're eating, as opposed to reading the paper or having a conversation
Or watching television,
thinking,
for
or
God's sake.
TV. for sure. But that's an interesting point that you bring. Yeah, again, very holistic in itself. It's not just about the food we put in our bodies, but our relationship with it.
And your whole digestion. After doing so many hair mineral analysis, I really see that it's not what you eat, because I've done it with people that I know they have a good, hearty, healthy diet, but it's really what you absorb into the cell, right? And so one of the things you're bringing up is so important, because for good absorption, it's really important to be really present to the food. Because how many times have you eaten in emotional eating, in a stress response, right? And just eating, and then looked and went, oh my gosh, where did the food go? I don't even remember taking a bite. Chances are you are hardly chewing as well. Right? And so when we send big pieces down there, we don't have teeth down here in our stomach. Right? Our stomach mulches. The food has to be chewed up very well here. That takes presence, mindfulness. And when we get our senses going at the beginning by smelling and even visually looking at the food, by the time that we take it in and then we chew it well, and when you chew it well, you create more enzymes to actually digest the food.
I love that analogy, or not an analogy, but way of explaining things, because I have kids and I have a son who loves to eat, and when he eats, he gobbles. And I heard that very same line recently, and I thought, that's brilliant, Our stomach doesn't have teeth. So do your stomach a favor and do the chewing before the food gets down.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes, the chance of that you'll have better absorption is much greater. And also if you're not drinking a lot as well. It's okay to have sips, but if you drink glasses of water while you're eating, right? You're diluting all those wonderful enzymes that are being created when you're chewing the food and when it's going down into the different parts of the digestive system. Mhm.
So throughout the years, as you went along and have many clients, I presume, did you find you have an area of expertise? Is there one area, or is it just vast?
I would say that what I seem to attract are middle-aged women who want support with their hormones.
Wow.
As I have become middle-aged, that's what I seem to attract. And while I say that, they may come for hormone balancing, hot flashes, sleeping better, better digestion, night sweats, moodiness, all kinds of things. It seems to me that the greater amount of perceived stressors that they have, the greater amount of symptoms they have as they come closer and closer to menopause.
And also earlier we were talking about Monsanto and their chemicals. Now, in a scenario like this, as the decades have progressed in your practice, have you seen hormonal imbalances / immune system issues?
I've seen younger children or parents who are calling me, mothers in particular, to bring in their younger girls, 9, 10 years old, who are sweating profusely, who are getting facial hairs, who are breaking out in their skin.
At 9.
Even before they start menstruating,
Mm-hmm.
right? That are growing breasts earlier and earlier. And so yes, I've seen that over time,
That's scary.
most definitely. So yeah, a lot of hormones in the milk, growth hormones, and in the meat that we're eating, and antibiotics given to animals to prevent mastitis and things like that. So we ingest that,
Yeah.
right?
Antibiotics are given to animals to prevent mastitis?
Yes, and different infections.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we know about the antibiotics, but okay.
Mm-hmm.
Scary stuff.
Yes, yes, and I just wanted to say, you were asking about the hormones. So yeah, I see that there's a lot of connection also between the gut and what's happening with our hormones. Very much of a connection. If we have healthy digestion, healthy gut flora, a good balance between our floras, then I see that women seem to be healthier and happier when it comes time for their perimenopause or menopause, etc. So a lot of the work I do is making sure that the gut is working wholeheartedly, has a lot of vitality, has what it needs, and that really affects the brain as well. Our ability to have clarity. A lot of people now tell me, I have brain fog, I'm not clear. The gut and the brain are connected by the vagus nerve.
Yes.
And
Big
so,
killer.
yes, it's actually the same material when we're born, and then it splits off. And so keeping the gut healthy really affects, because we have a lot of children now that I see also with ADHD, ADD, with they can't rest. They can't rest. And so we have to work on the gut, and that helps with their brain and their focus and their clarity and all the other functions of the brain, the rationality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Interesting that it would seem kind of counterintuitive for, you know, an everyday person like me. I would think it would be the nervous system, or like, I wouldn't think of, let's say, addressing ADHD symptoms through the gut.
Very
It's so
much
surprising.
so. And the nervous system as well. So I definitely work with the nervous system as well.
Yes. Yeah.
However, this is the central plumbing system, right? And so, and also we hold a lot of emotions in our gut, right?
Yes.
A
More so
lot,
than-
and especially emotions that we don't allow ourselves to feel, we push,
Oh, yes.
and we push, and we put, oh, can't feel that. I was told not to cry, don't cry, be a big boy, right? Especially a lot of men were taught that. Don't cry, be a big boy, tough it up, be resourceful, you know? And so we push our emotions down also into the gut. Right? So that affects our gut health as well, the whole health of our being.
And how would you address, so speaking of which,
Yes.
I'm so fascinated, how would you address emotional, residue that has been pushed down in the gut? So are you saying that even that's something that could be addressed physically? That when we address that physically, that there will be an effect emotionally?
I think when we're talking about cleansing and detoxing on a physical level, so when I start working with people, we talk a lot about the liver, and in Chinese medicine, the liver holds anger, frustration, things like that. The kidneys, fear. And so when we start working like that, I gently work to cleanse people, even children. If necessary, of toxins or residue of medications, or just what we live with, the herbicides, the pesticides, the air pollution, the water pollution, everything that we talked about. So, and then the cleansing, we start on a physical level, but that's connected on the emotional level as well. And I noticed when a lot of people start even physically cleansing and using cleansing foods as well, that a lot of suppressed emotions start rising to be dealt with to the surface. And I really believe we don't have to go looking for that. I believe when the time is right and the person is ready to look at the next piece for the next piece of healing on their journey, that it arises all in the perfect time.
That's beautiful, actually. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to go digging for it, and it doesn't have to get all ugly.
Well, some people think they're going to find it through a deep tissue massage, for example. But I like your approach. I think it's just, everything is one piece anyway, just working at different, has its own rhythm. So yeah, I definitely get that.
Yep, I like that. Everything.
So tell us about the tools you use to figure out what's wrong with people.
I do a lot of listening. Right? A lot of people just need to be heard and to be in a space where, with love and compassion, neutrality, and just be there and be the listener. Right? So I do a lot of that. Maybe guide with some questions to help people go deeper in themselves if they're having a hard time to do that. But really I hold space for people's expression, for whatever it is that is needed to be expressed in that moment. Sometimes people don't feel safe enough to just go down to that deep place where things have been pushed and just allow it to surface. So I'll just sit with somebody and grant them that sacred space. It's sacred. To me, they are sacred. And we're creating together sacred space.
Yes.
Right? So I never know what each session will look like. It's a fascinating work because I'm just here in the present moment, holding space for whatever is to happen, really. So that's probably the biggest thing that I work with. And I've seen so many people just have their own aha moments as they're working through things for themselves, right? While I just listen and be here for them. So that's what I do a lot.